Welcome everyone to another edition of Willow's Weather Briefing. Today is Friday, May 16th, 2025. Our hazards today include a severe weather outbreak, potentially pretty significant today across the mid-Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley and mid-South, along with a chance of flash flooding. We will also see multiple rounds of thunderstorms over areas of New England associated with our upper level low that caused our severe weather yesterday, and that also could lead to some flash flooding. We also have record-breaking heat across the southern United States, especially areas such as southern Texas. We also have windy and much cooler conditions across the northern plains after an episode of record-breaking heat up there. As you can see on satellite, we have our beautiful low pressure system well occluded by this time that caused our severe weather across the upper Midwest into the lower Midwest and Great Lakes regions. There are a few tornadoes that occurred in areas in Minnesota and upper Wisconsin, but due to primarily outflow production, the tornadoes were very few and far between in the southern regimes. Over here is our storm reports for yesterday. As you can see, most of the tornadoes were relegated to that northern mode where your temperature and dew point spreads were a bit lower. And also, we have a ton of wind reports associated where those temperature and dew point spreads were a bit higher. We also have widespread significant hail reports as expected. Pretty significant hail event, but we're kind of glad that it didn't spread into the metropolitan areas such as Chicago, or at least not as widespread as we kind of expected. Here's our drought monitor here. The solid lines demarcate the areas of most significant concern of drought. Please pause the video if you're interested in looking at this. Here is our current watches and warnings today. High winds across much of the northern plains, into the central plains, and into areas of the Midwest due to that occluding upper level low. We also have high wind warnings in areas such as South Dakota and Nebraska. We have a heat advisory in southern Texas today that includes, I believe, San Antonio as well. And right now we have ongoing severe weather. Even quite early into the day, we have a severe thunderstorm watch across areas of the central Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley and mid-South. We also have some severe thunderstorm warnings in southeast Missouri, northeast Arkansas, associated with an ongoing cluster of storms there. Here's our surface map for today. Big occluded low in the northern United States, which will bring rainfall to much of the northern United States and also eastern United States. Widespread area of severe thunderstorms are possible for today, including a flash flooding threat within that region of that stalling boundary from this occluded low here will kind of park itself and allow for training thunderstorms throughout the entire day today. High pressure mainly over the southern United States causing that heat risk. High pressure over the south will continue, and this low will also continue to move northeast, bringing a cold front and associated with lift with some additional thunderstorm development in the southern plains tomorrow. Also, lingering vorticity will bring possible mountain snow to the northwestern regions. And finally, on day 3, we have a severe weather risk over the central and southern plains associated with a low pressure system that's going to occur due to the impingement of a new upper level trough in the western United States. Also, a flash flooding risk associated with training storms as well. Here's our excessive rainfall outlook. Slight risk over the Ohio River Valley down the mid-south. We have locally high rainfall rates today, up to 2 inches per hour associated with convection, especially in areas such as central and southern Kentucky and northern Tennessee, this area right here, which will bring around 3+ inches of rain today. We also have a slight risk in Maine associated with the occluded low that's bringing moisture up here. We have pockets of 2 to 3 inches of rain possible in New England today. Day 2, marginal risks over pockets of the southern United States and New England. Day 3, marginal risk up here in New England, Maine, And we also have a widespread marginal risk here and a focused slight risk in the Central Plains to Missouri. We also have a chance of potentially over 5 inches of rainfall in this slight risk region due to training thunderstorms. Above average precipitable water and the confidence of a low-level cyclone will bring a slight risk of excessive rainfall that's slowly going to move east associated with that cyclone. This is Monday, and this is Tuesday. So our biggest story is going to be our severe convective weather. We have a 15 hatch tornado risk surrounded by a broader 10 hatch tornado risk here in areas. The most concerning areas are areas like Louisville, Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, Evansville, Indiana, and Clarksville, Tennessee. Also in the broader 10 hash includes cities such as Nashville, Tennessee, St. Louis, Missouri, Cincinnati, Bloomington, Indiana, and Jackson, Tennessee. You also have a huge wind risk associated with the spatial coverage of these storms. It's supposed to be pretty large, so a big 45% hashed wind risk, including most of the same cities that I said before. Once again, we can't forget about the hail risk associated with the more discrete supercells, which is why it's a bit further west, and the significant hatched is a bit further west. This also includes areas to the south as well, such as Dallas, Texas, into Texarkana, Arkansas. Day 2 outlook, our stalling boundary and dry line down here will bring a slight risk of severe thunderstorms in the south. We also have a slight risk over the mid-Atlantic to northeastern regions. 5% tornado risk here, relegated to this region in northern Texas. Wind risk for both regimes as well. And possibly the most significant hazard is going to be hail, as expected in the south, in the southern slight risk regime. Our day 3 outlook includes an enhanced risk across Kansas associated with higher confidence of spatial coverage. The significant hatched risk is throughout Kansas and down towards Oklahoma and far northern Texas. This, of course, is associated with our new reinvigorated surface low that's going to occur with our upper level trough that's starting to impinge into the western United States. And finally, day 4 through 8. This is on Monday. Here, 30% enhanced risk of thunderstorms already in areas such as central Oklahoma and far southeastern Kansas. Day 5, the severe weather risk will migrate east into portions of the Ozarks and into the middle Mississippi River Valley, and also portions of the southern Mississippi River Valley as well. Predictability is too low for risk past that. So looking at our heat risk today, heat continues in areas such as southern Texas, and that heat will just continue to build at least until midweek. And we will slowly shift our focus to areas of Florida associated with the high pressure system kind of meandering over here. Areas, the most concerning areas in the heat risk here in Florida is going to be the urban areas where we get little heat relief overnight. So let's just look at Orlando here, for example. Almost record high temperatures expected, approaching 100 degrees. And of course, with the humidity down to Florida, it's just going to be particularly unbearable for this time of year. We will have lows only in the mid-70s with highs approaching 100 degrees. Compare that to some place that's outside the city, we can see temps at night at least reach down into possibly the high 60s, which will cause some overnight relief and a depletion of the heat risk. This also includes urban areas such as Miami and Tampa as well. Looking broadly at our extended range hazards, we have flooding risks throughout much of the central United States and also a movement of that primary severe weather risk towards the east, as well as severe heat in southern Texas and Florida. Now, let's look at our model guidance here. We're going to start with the GFS upper level winds. just going to go ahead and look forward. This is our upper level low, causing that occluded low pressure system that's pretty much stacked with this upper level low. Impingement of the subtropical jet down here. As we move forward, the flow regime will continue to become widespread into our risk region, causing threats of supercells pretty much all day as long as the forcing's there. Moving forward, we can see our upper level trough. We have this first trough here in the western United States associated with that risk on Sunday, and that is going to eject into the plains. Some upper level flow impinging into areas such as Kansas and Oklahoma. That will, of course, cause our first surface response, and then we'll have a second surface response associated with another digging trough into the southwestern United States, bringing us more severe weather on Monday as well. This flow regime will propagate eastward and cause additional severe weather into the mid to southern Mississippi River valleys as well. Going down to the surface and precipitation type, we have our big occluded surface low here, bringing some rain and high winds into the northern United States, as well as possible thunderstorms in areas such as New England. But we see the main coverage of this event will occur indeed towards peak heating around 0Z, which is 7 p.m. Central, and a ton of training thunderstorms will cause a particularly elevated flash flooding risk here in the areas demarcated in that slight risk excessive rainfall outlook. We also have thunderstorms expected with that stalling boundary that's going to occur, as well as the dry line that's currently situated around central to western Texas. That is tomorrow. And then on Sunday, we see a reinvigoration of a surface low over here, causing widespread convection in the central to southern plains. That is going to slowly migrate eastward on Monday. We can see the surface low now situated over here, and our convective regime is towards a little bit eastward compared to Sunday's convection. And that surface low is again going to continue to migrate east. And then again, as I said yesterday, these global models sort of have a bias, especially towards the summer, to be a bit more progressive. So our regime of convection will most likely be a bit further east at this time. But as you can see, a reinvigoration of that convection as well on Tuesday. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at our model runs for today. Our high resolution models. You can see right now, initialization, already some convection underway in areas such as northeastern Arkansas and into the mid-south regions. As we move forward today, we might have additional convection popping up all over the area. Let's go ahead and look at our boundaries here. This is theta E. This is a proxy for moisture. We could see kind of a warm front up here and a cold front, I believe, over here. That intersection will provide kind of a focused area of forcing initially for all these cells up here. And storms will also initiate off of this cold front over here. Go ahead and look at our instability values. Let's go ahead and look at mixed layer CAPE. This is our proxy of instability, and as you can see, building of that instability as diurnal heating continues, and we see convection along the intersection between the cold and warm fronts here, and also some reinvigoration of that convection later today. Tons of mixed layer CAPE to be had over here, over 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE, plenty enough for severe weather. Go ahead and look at our bulk shear values here, plenty enough because of that continuation of that enhanced flow regime, no problem throughout our entire risk area. Let's go ahead to look at our low-level storm relative helicity. This is particularly important for hazards like tornadoes. So you can see not too much throughout the day, but as we get that as we get what we call the low-level jet, a nocturnal wind response, we get an enhancement of that storm relative helicity all throughout areas, particularly in the mid-Mississippi River Valley, over the Ohio River Valley, kind of demarcated by that 15 hatched risk over here. We can see if storms remain discrete around 0Z, there will be a lot of storm relative helicity to be had over here. As you can see here, we have a training convection currently with the HRRR, and that will continue to move eastward, and then a reinvigoration of convection over here, all across areas of the central Mississippi River Valley and along that cold front. Go ahead and take a look at some soundings here. Let's back up a little bit and go towards... Let's say we do have initiation along this warm front, cold front boundary here. This is a fair scenario. Let's just look at our environment here. Let's take a little better of a sounding. Kind of in that inflow regime. And as you can see, pretty good kinematic and thermodynamic profiles. A little bit lacking in terms of the low-level storm relative helicity, which makes sense since we don't really have much low-level response like any low-level cyclone, nor do we have a low-level jet response, so pretty darn straight hodograph. So maybe initially a hail threat down here, but thermodynamic profiles are very sufficient. Perhaps we'll have a bit higher temperatures and a little lower dew points, but fairly accurate. Maybe Cape values will be around the 4,000 area, but fairly accurate, at least I think, in terms of the hodograph profiles. Very fat instability, but possibly a little bit on the high side in terms of low-level instability. Go ahead and move forward to these cold front storms here towards 20. Let's go to 22Z for now. Here in near Cairo, Illinois, Paducah, Kentucky region. Again, I think this is fairly realistic. We can see the elevation of that low-level storm relative helicity, this curvature in the very low levels, this area between this right motion vector and the shear vectors is our area of storm relative helicity. And as you can see, still pretty fat cape. Again, I feel like we'll have a little bit less low-level instability, but I anticipate that this is actually kind of more realistic compared to the previous sounding. So this is quite concerning. We have over 182 0 to 3 kilometer cape here. Very, very sufficient for significant, possibly long track tornadoes, especially with SRH values starting to increase at around 22Z. Go ahead and move toward a little... Let's just go ahead and take a sounding over here as well near Little Rock, Arkansas to catch the environment down here. So you can see a bit higher temperature dew point spreads, but still sufficient storm relative helicity, a bit less compared to others, but still over 100 0 to 3 kilometer cape, still sufficient for tornadoes. I feel like as you go southward, our temperature dew point spreads will be higher, our low-level shear will be lower, so we're mainly looking at a hail threat down here. At least in areas such as Texarkana and into Little Rock, Arkansas. Finally, let's go ahead and move a little bit more forward when we get that low-level jet. Storm mode will be a bit of a question mark, but if things remain discrete, storms will be very isolated and by themselves during this time. You can see our nocturnal inversion starting to build in towards the night, which can marginally decrease your low-level support for hazards like tornadoes. But if storms are already ongoing and they create their own quote-unquote vacuums, according to my mesoscale professor, we have good mid-level lapse rate sufficient for instability to drill through this inversion and essentially make it not exist. So we have an increase in low-level storm relative helicity now well over 200 meters squared per second squared, and this is a great profile for something like tornadoes, especially if you already have storms ongoing. So yeah, we're mainly looking at this corridor right here for possible significant long track tornadoes, given that storm mode remains discrete. By the looks at the HRRR, it looks like that is kind of going to remain so for quite a bit, at least towards 0Z. Perhaps after that, we see a more congealment as this model shows, but initially we do see some great parameters for significant severe weather. Let's go ahead and take a look at another model here, the NAM 3 kilometer. We still see that morning convection over here, and then we see a reinvigoration of that convection in the mid-Mississippi River Valley. A bit more mild on the NAM. We can see these prefrontal storms associated with the highest convergence and a bit more tendency to congeal. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the environments conducive for this type of storm mode. Doesn't really make much sense to me. If you get profiles like this, then perhaps I think it's convecting a lot because it's much easier to reach what we call the level of free convection. It's where parcels can just rise freely and then updrafts can form, given that you have enough upper level, mid-level instability. But overall, I feel like this thermodynamic profile is a bit unrealistic. We'll probably have higher LFCs. The NAM tends to undermix, which means that our temperatures will realistically be higher and our dew points will be lower. So I do think we're overdoing it a little bit on the NAM, especially when it comes to our instability values. I do feel like the HRRR is a more realistic solution, and unfortunately, it is the more robust solution in this particular event. Let's just take a sounding here towards the main frontal regime. One thing that's consistent is the low-level jet response. It's going to be pretty good, and we see high instability in the mid to upper levels here. The NAM is a bit more robust with the low-level jet response and SRH of 339. So perhaps if the NAM's low-level jet response happens and the HRRR thermodynamic response happens, then we'll have a pretty significant weather event ahead for us. Let's go ahead and look a little bit more forward. Let's go ahead and look at tomorrow's threats, primarily hail and wind throughout our areas here in the Central Plains, mainly associated with the forcings involved and the profiles. Very straight photographs, very good for hail, but we do have a slight inversion up here. Our low instability will be mitigated a little bit, 105, and I do expect, since again this is the NAM, that our LFCs will be a bit higher this time. Our temperature dew point spreads a bit wider this time, so definitely looking at hail for tomorrow. Then outside of the sounding realm, go ahead and go back to the GFS and look at our severe weather parameters for Sunday here. Go ahead and look at our surface-based CAPE. Again, plenty of CAPE for tomorrow, but again, the profiles are much more conducive to hail generation. And then we have an invigoration of that surface-based CAPE here on Sunday. So we can see the tight dry line over here. So the dry line set up over western Oklahoma. Storms will form off of this and get into this very juicy environment. Again, bulk shear will be sufficient since we have that impingement of the upper level jets. Plenty of bulk shear to work with over here on the order of 40 knots, 40 plus knots. In terms of low level shear, again, this will obviously change a bit as we get closer because it's a bit harder to resolve at this range, but as you get closer to the surface low, you do have better shear up here in central Kansas, and because you're closer to the surface low and you have more synoptic support, do expect more spatial coverage of storms up here associated with the higher shear values. And of course, here in Oklahoma, we still have sufficient shear values for hazards like tornadoes. Let's go ahead and look at our GEFS ensemble for our hazards and threats on Monday and Tuesday here. Monday, this is our mean surface-based CAPE. Plenty of instability to work with around here. on the order of 2 to 3,000 plus joules per kilogram across the central to southern plains. As we move forward towards Tuesday, we still have sufficient instability throughout this warm sector, but again, this probably will migrate west a little bit. Still kind of tough to resolve these thermodynamic features at this range. Again, bulk shear will be sufficient both days, both on Monday and Tuesday, associated with the upper level trough. A lot, 40 to 50 plus knot bulk shear flow across this region. Again, kind of the same thing on Wednesday, a lot of bulk shear across the regimes are expected to have severe weather. Again, pretend that this translates west a little bit because of the innate biases of this model. So generally, looking at a pretty potent severe weather sequence starting today, especially a significant severe threat for all hazards, especially tornadoes today, and wind. I feel like tornadoes and wind are going to be our main hazards for today. Also pockets of large hail as well. So all hazards nonetheless. If you're in that 15 hatch region, please be prepared and watch out for any National Weather Service warnings. All right, so here's our 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, valid May 21st to May 25th. We have much below average temperatures for much of the northeastern United States and above average temperatures in areas such as the Southwest and Florida. Here's our 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, above average for much of the Northeast and below average for the Western United States. So that is going to be it for today. A very potent severe weather look upcoming. We already have some storms in the Mississippi River Valley. So if you're in any of these regions, please be prepared for potent severe weather today. It might get nasty out there and quite messy. So if you enjoyed this weather briefing and you found it useful, please leave a like and consider subscribing. I do these daily-ish when I have the time. But if you have any constructive criticism as well, please leave a comment down below. And of course, if you want any specific information regarding your area, please refer to your local broadcast or National Weather Service meteorologists. I have sources down below for you. Thank you and have a great day.